What's going on, beautiful people? We are back again with another MMO podcast. We are so excited that you continue to join with us on this journey of peace, love, growth, development. And it's always a pleasure because joining me is Amy G.
What is up, MMO fam? We are back with another episode and we're continuing our series. So, what I was thinking today was how emotions are a friend of love and how they could point us to love and direct us to make better decisions. The reason why I want to talk about this today is because on Friday I went to work. It was an in-office day for me, but before I went to work, I went to Nectar, which is a juicery. I got to get my juice in, got to get the greens. So I wanted to get a juice before work, but there was a girl standing out there and she had a booth and it was for Yoga 6. So, yoga, I had to stop by, I had to see what was up. So apparently Yoga 6, they're opening up a new studio in Scottsdale. And so I go up to her and I'm just, asking about her day and how everything's going and just truly wanting to know who she is, just why she's at this booth and, just took the time to talk to her. And soon then I just wrote down my name and number just in case, they're looking for instructors. I didn't think anything of it. I just, stopped by. Fast forward Saturday, I get a text that says, "Hey, this is blah blah from the Yoga 6 booth. This has nothing to do with yoga. I honestly just wanted to text you and tell you, like, thank you so much for taking the time to stop and genuinely talk to me. I feel like you treated me with a humanistic personality and kindness. And I felt like a really good vibe from you. And I was just wrapping up early feeling super defeated by the day, and you showing up with your smile and the fact that you wanted to know my name like really meant so much to me. Honestly, I'm sharing this because we never know who we're impacting by just showing up as we are, and like how our emotions, like what we bring to the table to people, it creates a ripple effect. So I just wanted to share that how our emotions, they're a friend of love, and how we show up matters, and that we're not our emotions, but when we do show up, it creates a ripple effect.
That's such a beautiful story. As you're listening out there, the first thought that usually goes through my mind is that we see those people every day. We see those people that we pass in the hallway. We see those people that we just kind of give like a friendly half smile, small wave, but we have no idea what they're going through. And every once in a while, if you're like me, or you might have that urge or that feeling like something just tells you deep down, hey, you might need to go talk to them. Hey, ask them how they're doing, how this particular thing is going in their life. Because in this whole entire series, how love operates is that we're trying to show you that love is not a straight line. Love is not an A to B type of a thing. Love has many different forms, it goes in many different directions. And from that, that brings us to our first point. They can point you in different directions to make things better. So they just help you understand that if you have an opportunity to show love, it's just hi. It's just how you're doing, checking in with someone. Because sometimes I think when, especially, I don't know if you can agree with this, Amy G, but when we say the word emotion, sometimes we think they have to be big. We think they
Mm-hmm.
have to be these huge acts or these huge feelings of happiness, huge feelings of sadness, huge feelings of anger. And love sometimes isn't always like that. It sometimes can be something very small. Just seeing someone and talking to someone for 5 minutes is an emotion and a friend of love. And that compassion, that giving can change somebody's day for the rest of that time frame.
Well, the word emotion has motion in it. So, how I think about it is we just have to show up and allow that emotion to move us. And if we're showing up with love and light, you never know what's going to come out of it or how you're using that emotion to help others.
I remember, like, for Allison and myself, in the beginning of our relationship, we used to be very, I would think a thought, but I wouldn't tell her my thought. She would think a thought and she wouldn't tell me her thought. Next thing you know, something would happen probably like a week or two later. And because I didn't tell her, hey, when you eat that dish, make sure you put it in the sink. Or she wouldn't tell me, hey, when you're leaving for the day, can you make sure your clothes go in the basket? And we weren't telling each other those things. And now you fast forward a few weeks later, it almost becomes an emotional overload because now She's frustrated because certain things are around the house. I'm frustrated because certain things are not in the right place. And we didn't even understand that we were allowing our negative emotions to affect us, to create that ripple effect of tension in the house.
Mhm.
Now we are constantly checking in with each other because we want that ripple effect to create something going in a better direction, something going in a direction where it is of love. It is not of a hurt. It is not of a making the other person feel bad. And so now we're checking in with each other. Hey, I did this and this. Do you need anything else? Hey, I have this meeting and I'm going to be back at this time, because nothing is too small because we don't know where it's going to go.
That's so good because what I'm hearing is you guys have brought that awareness to the ripple effect instead of continuously staying in the cycle of the negative. You changed it to the positive. So I just want to ask our audience, what is something that has been a negative ripple effect that you've noticed that you can change to a positive ripple effect?
Mm-hmm.
Bringing that awareness to when I wake up in the morning, instead of waking up and being like, oh, so early, I'm so annoyed, flipping that emotional script to a positive one, like, yes, I got another day, or I'm so excited to drink my juice this morning, finding that positive thought to ride that ripple effect.
Oh man, finding that positive thought to ride the ripple effect. It's because think about this for a second. We are not our emotions. I think sometimes as we go through the day and something doesn't work the way we want it to work, you know what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
That dinner didn't get ready on time. You had a meeting and you were kind of late. Traffic was a little bit more backed up. And guess what? We say the magic words. Oh, my whole day's ruined. It's ruined my whole day. And now what we've created is we've created this ripple effect of a negative outlook, that everything we're going to run into is only piling on to us. Everything we're running into is only adding to that negativity. We are not our emotions. And it's up to us to find the silver lining. It's up to us to change the direction we're going in, because sometimes that wave can continue to take you in a direction you don't want to go.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's important for us to do that.
That's so powerful. And it's so true how, like, we have the choice, pause and be aware of our response to those negative thoughts or emotions. For example, I do mindful mornings and I was teaching a yoga class in the morning. And so that's the perfect space to practice stillness and observe your thoughts. Probably you would think the most controlled environment you have to have a space of stillness. But in my case, there's always something that's not in our control. And so this morning, a bird hits my window and I'm in the middle of teaching mindful morning meditation. And it scares the crap out of me. And my first thought is like, what the actual F? Like I'm about to scream this and I feel this emotion within me. And I immediately wanted to just explode. But externally, what was happening, I'm so proud of myself because I was aware of this. I flinched. What the audience probably saw was I flinched and I was like, just continue to focus on your breath because that emotion, oh my gosh, I was not expecting it. I wanted to immediately react to it, but I'm just so proud of myself because I paused and I just was aware of that reaction. And it's like we have the ability to do that all the time. So it was cool to recognize that because I was like, wow, I'm so proud of myself. But also I'm teaching a class, so I couldn't just be like, oh my gosh, what the heck? And translate that energy to everyone else who's like, wait, what? What's going on? It's online. Like, what happened? And throwing off the whole experience. So it's just being aware and very present and mindful to, oh my gosh, I have to pause.
When I was younger, I used to think to myself, I'm short tempered. I get angry really quickly. And it's not that you're short tempered, it's just that I did not have an ability to pause.
Ooh,
I
that's
didn't try
good.
to understand the ability to pause. And in Amy's story, sometimes just pausing and taking a breath can help you control that emotion, because we want you to understand your emotions are a friend of love. So when you're around that person and they make your blood boil, or something's not going the way you want it to go, or you want to react in a different way, you can pause and take a breath and come up with a different kind of response. You can pause and it may make you flinch, but instead of screaming out, instead of the action, instead of the direction you don't want to go, you can pause and take a breath and have a whole completely different outlook on it. I wish I did that when I was younger. And even now, when I'm with Allison, I had to learn how to pause because there's times where we're having spirited fellowship and she's telling me how things aren't not going the way they're supposed to go. And in the past, I used to be like, what do you mean? And like now I'm like, thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate that's how you feel. And now how can we fix it? Or now how can we go in a different direction? So for you guys out there, that's why we say emotions are a friend of love. So pause and take a breath so you can understand where that emotion is coming from.
So scientifically, I'm going to take this somewhere for all of you people who like to know scientific proof or whatever, but the brain is essentially separated into three basic parts, and that's physical, emotional, and intellectual. So the brain actually operates and processes information from the bottom up. So the first thing is physical. So when you're stressed, the first thing that goes, you clench, you're feeling sensations, you're getting riled up, it's getting hot. That's a physical sensation. So the first thing that goes is your breath. So that's why you're clenching. That's a physical sensation. So that's how your body's processing, okay, something's wrong, something's off. So that's giving a signal to the second part, which is the emotional part of the brain. So that's where the stress goes, and that's where you're getting the emotions, and you're like, oh, whatever. And the third one is intellectual. So that's how you process. That's the story that you give the emotion. That's where you're trying to make sense of the emotion. But the way to regulate is starting with the physical, which is, because that's how the brain operates from the bottom up. So we need to self-regulate our emotions by starting with the physical sensation. That is maybe a tapping sensation or your breath. That's the easiest one to go to because we can intentionally give our awareness to our breath. Going back to our breath, taking 3 full deep breaths, and then emotionally taking a pause. And that's where maybe you go to community to talk about, hey, this situation, this is something that I'm feeling. And that's where you create a sense of belonging in that emotional state. And the third state is intellectual. So then that's when you can give reason to that emotion. Bring yourself back to green, bring yourself back to a centered state. I just wanted to share that with you, that the first thing with your emotion is to start from the bottom up, which is that physical sensation, which is your breath, and then take it to the emotional and then the intellectual.
You didn't know you were about to get lessoned today. You
I'm sorry, I just really had to share that because that
Of
was
course.
honestly in a seminar, and that really resonated with me. And I feel like that helps people regulate, like how do you regulate the nervous system? How do you regulate our emotions? And that was just something I wanted to share.
No, and that was great because here's the beautiful thing about what you just heard for everyone listening out there. For the people that aren't listening that need to hear this, share this with them. We are saying you have to acknowledge your emotions. And I think for men out there, no matter what stage you're at, no matter what part you're in, that's something that we don't get lessons on. That's something that we're very nervous about doing. That's something we don't want to get scarred from. And we're saying no, you have to learn how to acknowledge your emotions because guess what? You can't control them all. They're unexpected. They can happen at any moment. And we have to learn how to acknowledge them. Because once we can do that, we can then have a proper response for them. So the way you feel is valid, but the way you sometimes respond may not be. When I literally, if I can go back in time and talk to the younger version of myself, I would say, hey man, you sure you want to say that? You sure you want to do that? You sure that's what your response is about to be? Because sometimes we can't take it back once it comes out. So we're saying acknowledge it. And it's happening throughout your entire body. And another thing that you can do to help you with that and trying to acknowledge your emotions, and Amy said this earlier, is not only pausing and taking a breath, but just counting your blessings while you're doing that. So every breath, I'm thankful for my wife. I'm thankful for today and my opportunity I get to spend with Serena. Just pausing and literally counting your blessings will give you a chance to have a better response.
So good. I just want to share some scripture with you guys. Galatians 5:22 through 23. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, forbearance, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Against such things there is no law. So our emotions sometimes can throw us off from being in this state of love, joy, peace, forbearance, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness. But we have that self-control. That's a big word that stood out to me, is that we have that regulate and bring ourselves back to a calm state. So this scripture helps me realize that our emotions are just passengers and they are not driving the car,
Mm-hmm.
and they just are there to be acknowledged, but I'm the one in the driver's seat. So if you want to elaborate on that metaphor, okay, I took
Yes.
it from you.
Nah. Man. So I heard this story, and we gave this to a Sunday school. Like we're teaching kids this, and I was like, man, they need to teach this in the main chapel. But the instructor said emotions are great passengers, but they're terrible drivers. And in that, what she was saying to them and what we're saying to you today is anger, they're in the car with you. Frustration, they're in the car with you. But don't put them in the driver's seat. Because if you put them in the driver's seat, they're not going to get you to where you want to go. And also, the more you continue to learn, it almost turns into you can put joy in the car. And when room starts to get filled up, and you can put happiness in the car, and you can put different emotions in the car, guess what? There is no more room for anger. There is no more room for frustration, and you can drop them off.
Yeah, I liked how you said that anger and frustration, those are like the Uber rides, like they
Oh
only
yeah,
get a little bit of your time, like
you dropping them off. They're not your homeboys and your homegirls. You dropping them off. Which brings us to our next point. Like at the end of the day, fight for peace. How do you have your emotions become a friend of love? You fight for peace within you, within your surroundings, within your friends, rather than it being perfect and it being right. So at the end of the day, when you're talking about your emotions are riding with you, fight for the ones you want to be in your car. If they're not providing peace, don't let them continue to ride with you.
hmm
If they're not continuing to provide joy, don't let them continue to ride with you. If they're not continuing to give you guidance and understanding, don't let them ride with you. Because again, you want to make sure that you're putting yourself in a position that it's helping you understand your emotions. Because this is another form of loving yourself first, loving the people around you so you can be the best version of you.
And as we fight for peace, especially in our relationships, in our day-to-day friendships, let that be the focus. It's not me versus you, it's us versus the problem. And once you look at that in all your relationships and friendships, then that's when you're fighting for peace. That's when you keep that love light at the center instead of pointing against one another. We're in it together to keep the peace.
In the word, it says in 1 Corinthians 15:33, it says, do not be misled because bad company corrupts good character.
Mm.
So sometimes if your emotions are getting out of aligned with who you think you are and who you've been made to be, sometimes you might be misled by the environment you're keeping, the surroundings you're putting yourself in, because they might be corrupting who you are. So literally, we're talking about, we want your emotions to help you. We want your emotions to continue to project and push you in a place where it's peace, love, and joy, and keeping God in the center. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you guys so much for tuning into another MMO podcast episode. We love you. We're here for you. And at the end of the day, we don't want you to think like us.
We just want you to think differently.